the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. He is a former atheist and spending 30 years reconciling science and God, no other than Mr. Douglas Ell. Welcome, Mr. Douglas on Abstract Essay. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Yes. Hi. Thank you, Daniel. Thanks for having me on your podcast here. So, my name is Doug L., and I used to be an atheist, as you just said. I went to MIT. I graduated early. Math has always come very easy to me. And uh, at one point, I thought science was contrary to God. And then I had an experience. And I decided I needed to figure it out for myself. And I've actually spent, I would say now, 40 years trying to reconcile science and God. And I find the scientific evidence for a creator of the universe and a creator of life to be absolutely overwhelming. So thanks again for having me on your show.
And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Douglas. Thank you. So today let's talk about he came to faith through science. So tell us, Mr. Douglas, let's start the beginning. What was your initial perspective on the relationship between science and faith? Do you see them as inherently at war?
I did. Uh, when I was in school, maybe high school, I read that life started in a dirty pond. Basically, it's called the Miller-Urey experiment, which has been totally discredited since then. But I thought, well, if you don't need God to explain life, then what do you need God for? And I read a lot of the people said literature suggesting that people turned to God just because they wanted to have something, they made up something to believe in. And religion didn't seem to have the answers I was looking for in life. Science seemed very certain. It seemed that science could explain everything. And I drifted away from religion. So, as I said, I went to MIT. And years later, after my son was born, I had an experience that God is real. And I decided to figure it out. So I been looking, and to me, there are many, many areas of science that point to God. I've written a number of books on this. My first was Counting to God, and I lectured on that at MIT in 2014. My most recent book is called The God Proofs. It's a graphic novel, sort of a long cartoon book for younger readers, and that came out maybe a year ago. But if I could, let me give you some of the scientific evidence for
Go
God.
ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Douglas.
So I'm going to start with, I'll list them, the big four. These are four scientific areas of science for which there is no credible explanation without God. Okay. Four major areas of science. The first area is the creation of the universe. It's now been accepted for 100 years that the universe was created. There is there's a lot of fancy words and fancy theories, but no scientific basis for how the universe was created. You can call something the Big Bang Theory, that the universe started in a little point, but there's no scientific explanation that holds any water as to how that happened, how something outside our universe created our universe. And I mean, you can't get something from nothing. Something had to exist before our universe was created. Another way of saying that is, what was the first cause? And you know, people try to play games on that. They'll tell you, well, the universe exploded out of some fluctuation in the quantum field. A lot of big words that don't make any sense, because if you want to say the quantum field was there, where did the quantum field come from? I could get into this and a lot more, but the bottom line is the creation of the universe from nothing also violates the first law of thermodynamics. So you have a God, which is that matter / energy can never be created or destroyed. So you have a God already creating and changing the laws of physics. That's number one. Number two, if I may continue on my big four, is the fine tuning of the universe. So the universe has a lot of physical laws and constants, things that have been measured by experiments, things like the strength of gravity, the speed of light, the ratio of masses of the electron and the proton. There are actually dozens of these, strength of the electromagnetic force, the forces within atoms called the strong nuclear force and the weak nuclear force. There's dozens of these, and it has been scientifically verified that if you tweaked any of these constants by just the slightest little bit, life could not exist. This is accepted by all scientists, okay? And it's like walking in, imagine there was a control room of the universe where all the dials were set for the different constants. And you walked in and you found all the dials were set to the exact right number. Clearly, someone designed our universe. It's overwhelming. And for example, Stephen Hawking, the noted physicist, who was an atheist and couldn't get his head around God, but he's the one who proved that the strength of gravity is so fine-tuned, getting it by accident would be like picking a single marble out of a pile of marbles that went to the nearest star. Okay, almost beyond incomprehensible. And that's just the strength of gravity. And there are dozens of these constants. So that's my big two. Now we have the universe was created. We have the universe is fine-tuned. Number three, if I may continue, Daniel.
Yes, continue, Mr.
The origin of life. Where did life come from? There's no credible explanation on this. And there's a Harvard University tried to figure out how you could get life without God. It crashed and burned. It's called the Origin of Life Project. They thought they were going to figure it out. They had a big conference and everybody said it's no. So think about what we know about life is now, and this is just an amazing scientific fact, it runs on digital code. Okay, and the digital code is called DNA. Digital code just means a system of transferring information using discrete units. So computers have on and off switches, right? Or you could think of them as ones and zeros. And through that digital code, we're talking to each other over the internet. It's how our electronic world works. Another digital code is writing. There are discrete individual letters, spaces, punctuation marks, and they communicate. Well, life runs on digital code, DNA. It's 4 different letters, and it is the most advanced digital code by far we have ever discovered. Now, this is all life. To get life by chance, you have to start with the digital code. You have to start with machines that can copy the code. You have to start with machines that can read the code. And all the code has to be in the right order so the machines can make copies of themselves. In the 1960s, a Yale professor calculated the odds of life arising by chance as about 1 in a number with 100 billion zeros. Okay, that's not 1 in 100 billion, one in a number with 100 billion zeros. So the resources of a trillion universes would still give you no chance of getting life by chance. That's number 3. There is no scientific explanation for how you can get all this information complexity in digital code by chance, plus at the same time the machines for running the code and copying the code. Okay, and number 4 is, my big 4, is the technology of life. Life has technology so far advanced of anything human beings have ever made that it is literally mind-boggling. And my example for that is the human mind, the human brain, which to me is the most advanced technology in the universe. The human brain, we have as many neurons, brain cells, as stars in a galaxy, about 100 billion. They are connected through all these different light and sound connections. And we have about as many connections as stars in 1,000 galaxies. The things the human brain can do is just beyond comprehension. It controls over 300 muscles. It's fantastic technology inside us. Our memory capacity, our processing units is in each brain is similar to the entire capacity of the worldwide internet. The human brain is at least 1,000 times more energy efficient than anything human beings have ever created. This is all published, detailed science on this. So that's my big 4, Daniel. The creation of the universe, the fine-tuning of the universe, all these constants being set right, the origin of life, no explanation without God, and then the technology of life, which my prime example of that is the human brain.
And Mr. Douglas, thank you for sharing to the world. Many scientists who are atheists argue that science is the only reliable path to truth. What was limitation you began to see in the frameworks? What questions did science by its very nature seem unable to answer?
Well, science, people think of science as a religion. And when you think of it that way, the word is Scientology. It's scientism, excuse me, not Scientology. But it's not. It's just a way of figuring things out. And I mean, why does science work? But science is just experiment logic. And when you apply that to these fields, you realize when you look at these areas in detail, there has to be a God, there has to be a creator. So science doesn't have all the answers. Science can't tell you why science exists. Science can't tell you why the laws of physics exist. There are questions that science can't answer.
Definitely. Something that is question mark, but only God can answer. And the gaps argument, Mr. Douglas, using God to explain what science can't yet is a common critic. How did you move beyond this to faith that complements rather than competes with scientific explanation?
Sure. Well, I see it the other way around. To me, I see it as science of the gaps. You've got these gaps that people are trying to fill in with fake science, like how did we get digital code, DNA by chance? How did we get the universe by chance? Why is it fine tuning? These are huge gaps. uh, in science as far as trying to, if you think that science is the answer to everything. Uh, so I think the argument goes the other way around. We're just talking about, you know, looking logically, using experimentation, observation, logic to figure out how the universe was created and how life began, etc. And you know, the process is called reasoning to the best explanation. What's the best explanation of why these things are? And the best explanation always comes down to be God.
Definitely. And which comes first for you? The intellectual pursuit of evidence or a personal heart level yearning for meaning? And how did these two paths eventually converge?
Well, I'm a very nerdy guy, as you can tell. uh, all right. So, and I think my path to God is clearly different than most people. Um, it's it's unusual. I like to share it, but I realize it is unusual. Uh, I strive for a deeper faith-based experience of God, and I think in my old age now that I've rejected this nonsense uh, that science is contrary to God. I'm working towards that, Daniel. I'm working towards, uh, you know, I wake up every morning and I read a Bible verse and other things related to God. I thank God for being here. I have to work on that because my tendency is to get too deep into scientific evidence for God. And I love reading all the articles in science on that are on 100, if not 1,000 websites.
So, Mr. Douglas, tell us, how do you, as an scientist, approach and interpret religious texts? Do you see them as a source of scientific data, moral wisdom, or something else entirely?
Could you repeat the question, Daniel? I'm not sure I got it.
Yeah, so how do you, as a scientist, approach the interpret religious texts? Do you see them as source of scientific data, moral wisdom, or something else entirely?
I see them as all of the above. The explanation in the beginning of Genesis for the creation of the universe is better than any explanation without science. But clearly, uh, and there are a number of things in the Bible that are scientifically accurate and way ahead of their time. For example, the Bible says, I think, 11 times that God made the heavens and stretched them out. And modern astronomy is finding that the universe has found that the universe is expanding. But primarily, I mean, then the Bible's also a history book.
Mm.
Its history is incredible, and the archaeological discoveries are mounting of the historical accuracy of every part of the Bible. But the real wisdom in the Bible, I think, as you're getting to, is uh, its morality and perhaps most of all its comfort. I'm a Christian, and you know the I know I'm messed up. The message that Jesus came to save me is my hope, and I find the Bible, last of all, to be a source of hope.
Indeed, it's a source of hope, people. And Mr. Douglas, the concept of miracle, by definition, seems to suspend natural law. How do you, as a someone trained to trust consistent natural laws, reconcile the possibility of divine intervention?
I see no conflict, Daniel. A miracle is something outside the known laws of physics. But God created the laws of physics. He controls the laws of physics. He can do stuff outside the normal laws of physics that we can't. And people like to say, well, there's nothing outside the laws. Atheists do. There's nothing outside the laws of physics. Well, there's actually a scientific experiment that violates the known laws of physics. It's called quantum entanglement, if I could get a little nerdy again on you. And
Go ahead.
the concept is scientists take two particles. They can be atoms. They can even be groups of atoms. They take two items and they make them exactly alike in a lot of very detailed quantum mechanical ways. Okay. Then they separate the two items. And when you change one, the other changes instantly. And when I say instantly, there's no measurable time difference. And so, it's at least 10,000 times faster than the speed of light by all measurements. It's an instantaneous change. And this has been verified, particles separated 80 miles apart. This violates Einstein's theory of relativity that nothing can travel faster than light. So you have two particles connected outside of space and time. There's something out there. But again, going back, I think, basic to your question, God controls the laws of physics. He controls every quantum phase state in the universe. If he wants to resurrect a human body, he can resurrect a human body, and he can do other miracles. We can't, but that doesn't mean that God can't.
God can do impossible things for sure. Thus, human cannot. That's why he's God. And Mr. Douglas, how did your understanding of what faith means evolve through this process? Did it shift from blind belief or trust based on evidence?
Well, to me, the shift has been to put God first, ahead of counterfeit gods. I don't know if you've ever heard of Tim Keller, Daniel. He's written a number of books. He passed away, I think, a year or two ago, but a very powerful writer. And he wrote a book called Counterfeit Gods. It's one of my favorite of his books.
Mm-hmm.
And he points out that a lot of people, and I was one of them, tend to worship things like money or good looks or popularity, fame. For example, I play bridge, card game. There's a lot of people who think that I see people at my bridge club. They think it's all about bridge. They just want to be good. Other people you see, they can never have enough money or whatever. And other people want to be famous. But if you're putting God first, is a switch that gets you out of that mindset. And that's an important part of my faith.
Interesting, Mr. Douglas. Interesting indeed. And if you go back and talk to your pre faith self, what would you say to that person who was convinced science and faith were incompatible?
Well, I'd give him a lot of I'd give him some of the arguments I just gave you. And my book, The God Proofs, is illustrated with two characters. And I would say one of them is my earlier self, full of doubts and thinking science can solve everything. And one of them is my current self with a lot more scientific knowledge. And so I would sit down and ask my former self to really look at the evidence, to understand the facts, to be open to the truth of God.
Mr. Douglas, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season. Abstract poetry in second season. I'm a book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in third season. I'm a food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101, Mental Health 101, and of course my Bible Verses 101. Love Letters, Movie 101 Review and Music 101 are in a fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in second season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Douglas, for someone who is a similar journey, feeling a pull toward faith but held back by their scientific evidence based mindset, what is the first step you would encourage them to take?
Thanks, Daniel. That's easy. If you're a skeptic about God, I would urge you to be skeptical of your skepticism, to think maybe you don't know it all, to actually look at the evidence, to open your eyes.
Mr. Douglas L., thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your books, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Well, right now, I'm working on creating a new book that expands on my first book, Counting to God, with all the new evidence in the decade that's passed. And I also wrote a novel, if I could give a plug in for that, Daniel. It's
Yes,
called
go ahead.
uh, Rise Above. And it's about a man who gets, an older man like myself, who gets cancer and decides to examine his skepticism. And it goes through, in a very easy way, readable way, I think, includes the scientific evidence for God. I snuck it into the plot. So I'm always looking for ways to help people overcome their skepticism and to find faith, because I think faith is what makes life worth living. Uh, the saying, you can't take it with you. Doesn't matter how much money you have or how famous you are or whatever. At the end of the day, it's all about faith.
Definitely. Yes, people, let's support Mr. Douglas Owl, because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Mr. Douglas, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon.